Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful December the 13th, 2019. Ground up the board days, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I feel like I'm living in a polar vortex down here in the south. It's damn cold down here. You know, I got the fire burning in the fireplace.
Yeah.
I got the heater turned up in the house. I feel like a hot dog on a spigot.
well, I hope you don't get eaten alive like Joey Chestnut would do, Big C. Make sure you stay away from him. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Also, Big C Sports, powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I just want to say so much about this wetness that we're having in California. Interstate 80 that goes really from San Francisco to New York. They always have snow up in the Sierra Nevada, so they're always telling people be careful out driving for that. And I know down south you say it's raining, or did someone just leave their sprinklers on, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the sprinkler's falling from the sky, Charlton. You don't have to turn on the sprinkler around here. Everything is green, seems like year-round, and we've been getting a deluge since yesterday. I mean, it's been pouring rain, and it's just running down the streets. There's been some flooding going on in this area, but hey, it's all good. We need all the water we can store.
And send some out to California if you guys are tired of the rain for sure. I do want to say, acknowledge iHeartRadio, acknowledge that Big C Sports, one of the top podcasts in the universe. Really appreciate them for their help. You know, we always talk about the National Suicide Hotline, and I'm not saying that we're the only ones to talk about it, but sometimes people need help, Big C. And I know that you had us doing this for pretty much ever since the end of summer. And I just saw on ABC News this morning, the morning show, they also did a whole segment on it. So I know sometimes you might be a trailblazer at different things, but when other national programs follow, it just validates what you're doing. Not that we're looking for validation, but 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Now, Big C, they actually had a medical doctor on this morning. I know you're not a doctor, but you might play one on TV every now and then, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the only validation I need in giving out this number and this resource is that we can hopefully save some ex-military lives, Charlton, and by doing so.
Yeah.
That's where I get my excitement from, is that we are able to provide a potential lifeline to people who need help and support mentally and physically, Charlton, to have someone that they can call 24 hours a day and talk to when they're having a tough time during their day or evening.
Yep.
That these people are always there for them, that they won't judge them. So many of our personnel, Charlton, once they leave the forces, don't have that structure in life that they once had when they were in the military, and they find themselves lost. And not only that, they don't have the financial and mental support that they've always had for the time that they were in our armed services.
Yeah.
And they come back to this country, Charlton, and they find themselves in a wasteland of thought, trying to figure out what their next move is.
Yep.
You know, so many of them have suffered mental and physical damages, Charlton, while they were at war, and coming back home, they don't need to be judged by the general public. They need to be helped by the general public and our government. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there, Charlton, because it's non-judgmental. It is there for help, pure help.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, Charlton, to have someone to talk to that is your friend, that is your ear to lean on.
Yeah.
And that's what we need more as an American society. I appreciate other outlets doing the same as what we're doing, because it's bigger than Big C Sports, Charlton. It's bigger than any of us. The suicide rate in America is horrific. And any way that we can find to help stem this horrific disease, I want to be a part of it. And that's what the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there for also.
Michael Strahan, George Stephanopoulos, and just the crew for ABC News. I know they've been a staple for people to watch the news. They're also trying to come out with an FCC number that's going to be dial 988 so people don't have to remember as much. But that may take about a year for that to come to fruition. 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. I want to bring up just an acknowledgement. I know you had talked about being down in Georgia, and they had this Miss Universe contest, and because all life came from the African continent, it's not like it's new, but in mainstream, for many people of color, it's almost like newsworthy to talk about things because there's been such a pushback to science and proving that all life came from Africa. You would think if people had an original piece of gold called the real McCoy, the acid test was also developed by a black man, they would want the real thing. They would want a real diamond, not cubic zirconia. So whenever mainstream says, let's all celebrate because it's the first time we're going to acknowledge all African-American women, to me, if you know history, it's not the first time. But Miss America, Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and Miss Universe, for the first time, they've all been women of color to hold the 4 major crowns. And we're in 2019, but those are mainstream media pageants, Big C, going way back to the original civilizations and Queen, Cleopatra. There's always been people of color all over this world that did not need mainstream to give them validation, but it is something to mainstream, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it just shows a change in societal outlook. How everyone is judging other people now, that the eugenic look is not what controls the world, is that it's about equality. And the more and more as we advance in society, we see equality arising.
Yeah.
And so many people now get opportunities that did not get opportunities decades ago. You think that Miss America was only a white pageant. Miss Universe was basically a white pageant to a degree, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because always the pale-skinned women were the ones who ended up being the finalists.
Yeah.
But to have this growth in society that we recognize people as people, I think it resonates what Dr. King said, to be judged by the content of your character, not just the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And that's becoming to fruition now in society.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. As I've always known all throughout my life, people are from the same tribe. We just have different skin, melanin, but I know sometimes the presence of melanin has caused a lot of people to be discriminated against. So again, congratulations to society, at least American society, for opening up the eyes and seeing the hue of all people. You know, sun tanning is a billion-dollar industry business, Big C. I wonder why. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody wants to have that copper brown look, Charlton, because it makes the eye very appealing when you're looking at someone, not to be just pale and look like a stack of snow.
Yeah, and I appreciate for all the women of color, my mother included, and just want to make sure that it's not the first time, but it's like mainstream's opening up their eyes, and I really appreciate that. It's just a little bit of progress. But you know, there's so much that happens in the world of sports, and I really want to get your thoughts as we celebrate the military football game, Army-Navy game. We're going to get into Friday Night Lights 2 coming up. But there's this thing that happened. There's changes that are happening with Major League Baseball, and the Major League Baseball Players Association is the joint drug program where players can be suspended now, but that's going to change, Big C, in 2020. And it's amazing how you look at players they're adding testing for opioids, fentanyl, cocaine, and other synthetic, forms of narcotics or whatever people use to get an advantage. Well, a positive test is going to lead to treatment, where in the past it led to people being fined or even, suspended, kicked off of a team, loss of income. Think about what they're opening up their eyes to. No longer, as of spring of 2020 for baseball, so it's going to happen under the other sports, they won't test for marijuana. They won't test for THC. They will not test for CBD, and that's going to be removed from the abuse drug list that they're going to have for Major League Baseball, Big C. So that's going to open up more opportunities for people to use that as alternative help to opioids, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, as I've always stated, Major League Baseball has the best union in all of professional sports. They've always been trailblazers as far as what allowed and accepted for their players and how their players earn their living. So this is not a surprise to me that professional baseball is still the front runner in this, Charlton. As you look at them in totality, they understand that when a player has a problem, he needs help. Just as we talk about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Yeah.
Just to suspend somebody and then send them off on their merry way and say, okay, they're going to seek treatment and help on their own, and the team is not going to be involved in it to understand and regulate how their recovery goes, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is an admirable move by Major League Baseball to do this. But this is done in conjunction with the Players Association, as we talked about yesterday. NFL players, why they don't have medical coverage after 5 years.
Yeah.
The reason why, Charlton, is because they only care about what they get right now.
Yeah.
As a Major League Baseball player, your pension, you qualify for your pension after 1 day in the major leagues. That's set up by the Players Association, Charlton, not by the owners.
Yep.
This is what the players negotiate, that they want long-term financial and medical help for their players.
Yeah.
So this is what Major League Baseball does. When you look at the NFL, these guys are thinking about, hey, I need mine now so I can go buy another car, go on vacations, buy some more gold. So I'm proud about Major League Baseball taking this step.
Yeah, and it's amazing because I know even in football you'll have players that are suspended for taking a substance that is not approved. The more, I guess, the cynical side of me, it's not really cynical as I get more educated on what's going on. And there's talk also that a lot of owners and athletes, especially many ex-athletes, a lot of them are on TV to this day, because many owners and professional sports organizations, they want to invest in the cannabis industry that has been legalized in many states now on the state level, not necessarily on the federal level. And when they can make a lot more money in the cannabis business, however they invest in it, they don't want to have that off of their books. They don't want to have to hide that anymore. So I think it's two-pronged. Yeah, they want to say they want to make it easier for the athletes to use it without being suspended, but they want to make sure that their investments are safer and they're not making investments in products that will have their players suspended. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, also you got to be careful in how you say that the owners are investing in it. If owners are investing in something, Charlton, that's not on a federal level, that's approved federally, they can lose their 5103, whatever their status, their nonprofit status.
Yeah.
So the owners, you talk about an owner investing. What prohibits the players from investing in it, Charlton? Investing in something that's going to have long-term financial return versus something that's just going to have glitz around your wrist or parked in your garage.
Yeah, and the fact is there are many well-known athletes, and many of them we've talked about over the years on our program that have also invested in that industry, because if the state said it's okay, then who is some athlete to say, no, Gavin Newsom is not okay? So I know that's going to help a lot more people make a lot more money, hopefully the legal way. But I do want to ask you this thought, though. What do you do for players? I mean, we can't say it's retroactive because there have been players that have been suspended from the league because they tested for an illegal substance. And this is a dumb question, but it's not the first dumb question I ask. Can they go back and sue the league for that lost revenue that they were doing something the league knew about, turned a blind eye? Now the league said, hey, it's okay now. Can they go back and get some of that money back, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're saying you're saying that all of society can go back and sue the government for what was illegal that they were put in jail for is now legal.
Wow.
I think that's a question that's beyond the spectrum of what's acceptable. When you do something and it's illegal at that time.
At that time.
It doesn't go, but you can't go back and retro change everything in society from what was legal or illegal.
Yeah.
That's saying that anybody who did something illegal 10 years ago can go back now and sue somebody because it's now legal.
Yep.
That's something that's out of the spectrum.
It's out of the spectrum. I'm sure it won't stop some good old boy lawyer from trying, Big C. Maybe Giuliani can do something useful with his time and look into that, Big C. I'm sure he can find more clientele. I want to just also, before we get into some football talk and Big C Friday Night Lights, I remember growing up as a young boy, always looking, as an African-American child, always looking for that black voice on radio or TV, and oftentimes I just couldn't find it. I remember listening to guys like Walter Cronkite, and when I got into the sports business, I know there's a lot of people that predated me being interested in the business, but just watching a lot of our well-known black athletes. There was Howard Cosell that would interview with Muhammad Ali. I remember Chris Kringle that would do the stuff with ABC News, and just all of the men that I've looked up to over the years. There's always been a lack of men of color, at least from my understanding. But I want to just wish congratulations, after 25 years, a legendary radio talk show host, a guy that I followed over the years, Tom Joyner, 70 years old. Tom Joyner has retired as of today, the 13th of December, and also known as the Fly Jock, a trailblazer in radio and TV for African Americans in over 105 markets, decided to just turn off the microphone today. But I'm sure he has opened so many doors for people, whether he knew about it or not. An inspiration, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it all depends on the region of the country that you're from. There's always been African American broadcasters around, especially in the radio spectrum, spinning the DJs over the years. Charlton, Tom Joyner that's how he got his start, was being able to be around those people. Southern parts of the United States has always been represented by African-American DJs and radio hosts. Tom Joyner has done an admirable job over the years of his time on radio and in television. The Tom Joyner Foundation would offer scholarships to minority children going to college, Charlton. He's been a great inspiration for many in the African-American community.
Let me get your thoughts on something. When I grew up, and again, I love the fact that you mentioned, because I'm out here on the West Coast, and even though it's considered very integrated, most of what I've seen, when a black American owns a business, for the most part, it has been in the South. And I've seen, family members that have owned business too. But down south, there have been more African-American mayors. There have been more people that have been in television. Even though there was more discrimination in the Jim Crow laws that affected a lot of people, there were still doors that opened, oftentimes marginalized doors, but yet those doors were still open, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it wasn't that the doors were open, Charlton. They built the doors on. I mean, if you look at black ingenuity in the South from slavery on, Charlton, blacks always had a toehold on what was going on in the South and up even in the Northeast from their migration.
Yeah.
They were trailblazers because they knew what they needed to survive, Charlton. They knew that when it was black and separated, Charlton, that the black communities had to flourish. So they had to create their own. They could not rely just on the white society, Charlton, to support them or even support the white society. You had to do it within your own communities. We see now in modern America, when you see the Middle Eastern communities, Charlton, they support each other. You see the Asian and Hispanic communities, they support each other. Black society used to always be that way in the South.
Amazing. There used to be a black stock market down in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was torn down by the federal government in the 30s because they were making too much money and becoming too prosperous. So again, congratulations, Tom Joyner. What a great historic career. He began his radio career after graduating from college, and he worked primarily, as you mentioned, in the South, in Midwest, Montgomery, Alabama, to Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis, Missouri, and then Chicago, Illinois, as television and radio. I think someone that maybe follows in his footsteps too is Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey has, so many platforms from radio and TV, and someone who a lot of people know of, but I think is more prominent when I watch HBC football. There's a lot of African-American broadcasters, and because it's not really open to mainstream, people may not know that they exist, but there's a lot of talented people of color that are on the airwaves down south. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, like I said, it's always been that way. With you being out there on the West Coast, you haven't had the exposure to it. But people in the southern and northeastern region of the country have always had that. When you look at where all the HBCs are, Charlton, they were always covered by African-American broadcasters, whether they're on television or radio, just in their local markets. It's always been there. When you look at the programs at these schools that have been in multimedia, to allow the kids to go out and get jobs in the professional circuit, Charlton, they've learned at the HBCs before expanding out in the mainstream society.
Yeah, they really have. So congratulations again, Tom Joyner, and everybody else who's opening doors. There are people who are listening. Keep up doing the great work. I want to turn to Big C's Friday Night Lights. Tonight, for the most part, in all states, tonight and also Saturday, you'll have championship football teams being crowned in their championship Super Bowl game, if that makes any sense. And in California, we have a change of the guard. The last 2 years, it was Mater Dei of Santa Ana as the number one high school football team in the country. They were knocked off by their league rival, number 2 in the country at the time, St. John Bosco Bellflower. That will now jump to number 1. They're 12-1 on the season. They will play number 8, Concord de La Salle. That's 12-1 on the season also. And that game will be decided Saturday night to crown the state champion in California. And if St. John Bosco wins, they'll be crowned national champion. Big C, there's also some great programs in Texas. We have Rockwall, Texas. They are 12-2. They will play number 3, Duncanville, Texas, 14-0. And oftentimes, California State Championships game, they'll have about 15 to 20,000. The state finals in Texas, there are times they play it at Jerry Jones AT&T Stadium in front of 40,000 people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, things are bigger in other parts than they are in California. But this one question I want to ask you, you say you have the top 2 teams in the nation high school-wise in California. Why does it not translate to having top college teams in the state of California, Charlton?
That's a very good question, and I think they're going to focus on that. Number 1, Pac-12, start getting your games on in the daytime so people can see it, as opposed to when kids want to go out and party at 7 and 8 o'clock at night, and that might be a change. I also feel there's another great program that's down south. It's in the state of Florida called St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, right where the Miami Dolphins play in Fort Lauderdale at Hard Rock Stadium. They are ranked number 5 in the country. They're 13-0. They're taking on Edgewater, Florida. That's 13-1, and that will decide the Florida large school state champion. And then as we go back to the state of Texas, North Shore of Texas, Big C, they're at 13-1. They are taking on Lake Travis of Texas, also 13-1. And those teams will most likely play down at the Jerry Jones World AT&T Stadium. But I want to ask that question just like you asked about California schools in Pac-12. In Texas, the last time we've had a national champion, it came in 2005. It was Texas versus California, USC in Texas. So both of the largest states in high school football have not had a national champion since 2005, Big C. Does that make any sense?
Well, when you look at national championships in high school football, what does it measure out to be? It's about a judgment, Charlton, because you can't play all across the country realistically when you have kids going to high school, trying to get their education, and even trying to keep these kids healthy, Charlton.
Yeah.
There's only so many games you should allow these high school kids to play. When their schedules are exceeding what college schedules are, you have to look at the health and welfare of the kids and the travel time. You got to lose education time to travel and play these games.
Yeah, they really do. So I hope that keeps a lot of people, just keep that in mind as people travel across the country to play the best competition from other states. I know Mater Dei has done that a lot, as well as St. John Bosco and St. Thomas Aquinas, as well as De La Salle. Number 9, Loudon, Valdosta, Georgia. They'll play number 18, Marietta, Georgia. And Marietta is 12-2. Lowndes is also 14-0 for the Georgia State Championship game. In Florida again, Jones or Orlando, Florida, they'll play number 22, Northwestern out of Miami. Northwestern is 12-2 in the season, and Jones is 13-1. As we finish out, Westfield, Texas, another program from Texas. They will play Guyer out of Denton, Texas. Westfield is ranked in the state of Texas number 2. They're 13-1. And then Guyer, Texas is ranked number 25 in the country, also 13-1. So there's just so much that we started this season with Big C. Big C's Friday Night Lights. I know you like when they have the local competition and the local teams can play their local league rival that may be within a 30-minute or an hour bus ride. But a lot of these programs, their rankings come from going outside of their district, outside of their state, and playing some of the top programs nationally. And I know it doesn't always translate to the programs in that state having the top programs. But as we close out Big C's Friday Night Lights, I want to wish everyone the best. Please make good choices. Don't drink and drive. Give me your thoughts again. Going back to the days when you played high school football, what do you think these players should take away as many will play their final competition in the league? Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, it's always great to play for a championship on regardless of what level that you're playing on. But, even those players who are going to go on to college, and, as I keep going back to that point about California, when you think about the top 10 players recruited out of California for the 2020 college football season, well, yesterday we gave the true freshman All-American team, Charlton, that we had out for Big C's true freshman All-American team.
Yeah.
And none of those players came from those top programs, the top 10 high school programs that you have across the country. When I look at the top 10 players out of California, the top 10 recruits for 2020, only one is committed to go to school in California, and that's a wide receiver that's going to go to USC.
Yeah.
9 of the top 10 players out of the state of California, and some of them come from those schools that you talked about, like Mater Dei and St. John Bosco,
yeah,
schools of that nature. They're going across the country to play, Charlton. You think about being in California. The number 1 recruit out of California is going to Clemson.
Yeah.
The number 2 recruit out of California is going to Alabama. The number 3 recruit out of California is going to Clemson. The number 4 recruit out of California is going to Georgia. The number 5 recruit out of California is going to Ohio State.
Yep.
The number 6 recruit out of California is going to LSU. The number 7 recruit out of California is going to USC. The number 8 recruit out of California is going to the University of Washington. The number 9 recruit is uncommitted, but the number 10 recruit is going to Ohio State. Why the exodus from California to go to the north and the southeast, Charlton, to play college football?
That's a very good point, and I think it goes back to TV exposure. Too many times when you wake up in California, and I remember that as a young college kid also, you wake up and you watch East Coast teams and teams from the South on TV. And then sometimes they kick off in California at 8 o'clock p.m. A high school kid, he wants to go out at 8 o'clock p.m., or especially a college kid. They're not looking to go to a football stadium at 8 o'clock. And to me, that's part of the problem. If they would just do like the NFL, there are no NFL kickoffs that start at 8 o'clock p.m. They're just not. And they play in the same climate. I think when the Pac-12 gets wind of that, when kids on the East Coast wake up, or kids on the West Coast wake up, and they can see the program that's recruiting them on TV and not competing with their nightlife, I think that would make a big difference. And I love talking about it.
But LSU, when you look at LSU and the SEC, they play 5 night games a year at Death Valley at LSU. Those games kick off at 7:30, 8:30 at night down at LSU every year. All the SEC plays night games. Half of their home games are night games in the SEC. One of the common denominators of these teams that I named off when I talked about the first 4 teams that I named, all of them at one point were ranked in the top 4 in the country, nationally.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge attraction to those players, Charlton. We also talked about the multi-million-dollar facilities that they have on campus for these players that come to and work out with their on-campus facility. They all have on-campus stadiums, and they all rank nationally. So I think, to me, more than the time that the game is kicked off, is what's provided for these kids during their life at college and playing football. When you can go and play in front of 90 to 105,000 people on those games, Charlton, of those colleges that we named down in the SEC and in the Big Ten, that to me is the number 1 draw. When we looked at the Pac-12 championship game and there was roughly 20,000 people at Levi Stadium there in San Francisco, you look at a Pac-12 team and half of those teams, Charlton, don't seat 50,000 people in their stadiums. What's the draw appeal to a kid when they say, I want to be on the biggest stage?
I think that's all fair, love, and war, and there has been a shift, and it's happened since the advent of television, because if you go back to the days of when USC was dominating, as recently as when Pete Carroll was there, and you can even say their last Rose Bowl, also UCLA, University of Washington, Arizona State, The only thing that's really changed is not the size of the stadium, it's the fact that television exposure has opened up more people to see games on the East Coast and the South. I recall when I was growing up, the only games I really saw would be an ABC or CBS game. Now a lot of conferences have their own TV schedules, and so on the West Coast, a lot of high school kids, even when I'm out doing AAU, they can turn on the TV and they're not watching West Coast football. They're watching the Southern schools, and I think that's part of it too. I don't think it's the size of stadiums. They've always had those stadiums that were packed, and when we talk about stadiums, Pac-12 conferences have produced as many NFL football players as any conference in the country, so I don't think it's a lack of talent. I don't think it's stadium size. I just think it's like Christmas. People advertise, you can see their product. If you can't see it, it's not top of mind, and that's what I think is going on. I want to come up on what's called the Big C timeout, also the Big C pause. It's really conversation the Pac-12 commissioner should be listening to Big C as they take their championship game down to Las Vegas. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network. We're going to take the Big C timeout. We'll be right back in just a moment, and I love talking about the Army-Navy football game. We'll do it in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are called Google and Alexa. Just say Google. Or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, everybody knows that the military, and I love how we pay homage to the military with the suicide hotline, also for civilians. And I look at this Army-Navy football game, the 120th time they'll kick off on Saturday in Philadelphia. And we think about total yards amassed these programs. The Navy senior quarterback Malcolm Perry, and recently named Offensive Player of the Year in the American Athletic Conference, just 68 yards on Saturday's game. He'll break Bill Worth's single-season program record for a total offense, 2,527 yards. Why is this game such a big game for everyone around the country, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, this is the only college football game that will be played on Saturday. That's the respect of college football to this Army-Navy Classic. Because these young men who play this game play college football for what it was meant for, Charlton. The competitiveness of the nature of the athlete.
Yeah.
Where you're going out and you're competing against opponents, and it's about pride and character when you put these young men on the field, Charlton. They don't have aspirations of multi-million-dollar contracts as NFL players. They have aspirations of being leaders of this great country.
Yeah, great country, yeah.
And that's what they do. They lead by example. If there was ever a proper use of that term, Charlton, you watch the Army-Navy game. The class and character of these athletes, Charlton, where they'll help an opponent up off the field after he's been tackled.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game is the most significant part of the game, where they each go over and sing each other's alma mater song, Charlton. At the end of the game, the respect that these young men have for each other is something that we've lost in society.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's really a sight to see. Think about some numbers: 672.5 yards combined rushing yards per game. That's a record by Navy and Army this season. They rank first and second in the football bowl subdivision, respectively, in that category. 253.8 combined rush yards allowed by Army and Navy. The midshipmen boast a top 20 rushing defense, while Army ranks 57. 119 games played between Army and Navy, dating to the inaugural bowl in West Point, New York. In 1890, the midshipmen lead the series. 60 wins, 52 losses, and 7 ties, Big C. That's incredible. Your thoughts?
Well, it's about being incredible, being a member of this great society, Charlton. You know, there's been very few athletes from the Army and Naval Academy, Charlton, that have gone on to the NFL. One of the most active ones right now is Alejandro Villanueva for the Pittsburgh Steelers, an offensive tackle who played wide receiver at Army. He went on and served a tour of duty in Afghanistan. Charlton was awarded with the Bronze Star for valor in war and came back and grew into an all-pro offensive tackle with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
But he went off just as the rest of these young men do, Charlton, and they go off and serve their country. We look at the records of sporting events and of teams, Charlton, over time. But the one record that stands above and beyond is the character of these young men who play in this great festive game, Charlton, is that you throw the stats out the window because stats are irrelevant. They play for life and dignity and respect.
Yep.
Where everybody else is trying to win an award, Charlton, their award is serving the country.
Yep, it really is. 88 Big C Army-Navy games played in Philadelphia, Lincoln Financial Field, home of the NFL's Philadelphia Eagles. It will host 3 of the next 4 Army-Navy games, including Saturday's contest. 47.7% of Army's third down conversion rate since 2010 is best in the land over that span. 21 career pass breakers by Army cornerback Elijah Riley, second in program history. Riley, a semi-finalist for this year's Jim Thorpe Award, has played a role in 6 of his team's 17 forced turnovers in 2019, intercepting 3 passes, forcing 3 fumbles, 14, the length of Navy's winning streak over Army from 2002 through 2015, the longest streak in the history of that series. 3 consecutive wins for Army since ending the skid in 2016. A win over Navy on Saturday would give the Black Knights their first 4-game winning streak in the rivalry since 1933. And Big C, 10 sitting presidents who have attended the game, including Donald Trump, who will be there for the 3rd time Saturday, twice in office and once while as president-elect. It really is the biggest game in the universe for the military. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it is the game. I mean, we have 5 branches of the military in the U.S., Charlton, and 3 of them play college athletics. The United States Air Force Academy in Colorado. We have the United States Naval Academy, as well as the Army Academy, Charlton. And it's just a great honor for being able to watch these men as they all march into the stadium, not just the players, Charlton, but the young members from the academy, men and women, as they come in their uniforms and regalia, and they're in such form, and you know, you can see the pride and character that they have from the fanfare in the stands as they cheer throughout the game to the players on the field.
Well, I love this country, and I know we're not safe because we want to be safe. We're safe because men and women sacrifice their lives, and I really appreciate what these young people do and wish them nothing but the best going forward. Big C, I want to finish off Big C's Friday Sports Report on NFL football, but I want to talk about what happened last night with the Baltimore Ravens, a 42-21 win over the New York Jets. They lock up the AFC North Division title for the 2nd straight year. They're 12-2. It's amazing how dominant their offense is. Very amazing. And I know when we talk about what Lamar Jackson does, he broke Michael Vick's record for most rushing yards in a season by a quarterback, 1,106 yards. He completed 15 of 23 passes for 212 yards and 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 134.4 passer rating. He also had 8 carries for 86 yards as the Ravens offense amassed 384 yards of offense, and he was averaging 7.7 yards a carry. Not bad for a guy they wanted to be defensive back. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as I look at what the Ravens did last night to the New York Jets, and the New York Jets have struggled all year long, I look at how their defense held the New York Jets in check, Charlton. They kept Sam Darnold and the rest of the Jets' offense off kilter all night long. They limited Le'Veon Bell in his yards per carry throughout the game, Charlton. I think his longest run of the night may have been about 19 yards, but they kept him in check, and this is a high-priced running back.
Yep.
We look at the exploits of the Ravens offense, you know, led by Lamar Jackson. Mark Ingram, dominant on the ground once again at running back, had another touchdown. But that offensive line is doing a marvelous job up front protecting the running game. They're leading the NFL in rushing. when you think about Lamar Jackson's stats, I know everyone wows about his running exploits, Charlton, but you have to look at him as a passer first and foremost. He's leading the NFL in touchdown passes with 33, with only 6 interceptions. These are people saying that the young man could not throw the ball. If you go back and look at the number 1 overall pick in that same draft last year, Baker Mayfield is struggling this year. He only has 16 touchdown passes.
Wow.
Less than half the touchdown passes that Lamar Jackson has. And that's coveted with 16 interceptions, where Lamar Jackson only has 6.
Yeah.
That's not counting the rushing touchdowns that Lamar Jackson has scored. He's accounted for 40 touchdowns for his team this year.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield could not say that, but Baker Mayfield is spending so much time making commercials and blasting the media that he forgot he was signed to play quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's the top quarterback in the NFL, period, and that shows you that a lot of pundits, they're looking for the eye test. They're looking for that guy that looks like the guy when they see in the mirror, as opposed to just looking at a guy, what he can do, and build a team around him. I want to try to run through the NFL schedule, Big C, in the final 20 minutes. Week 15, Big C's thoughts: Seattle Seahawks 10-3 at the Carolina Panthers 5-8. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. The Seahawks are favored by 5.5. Did you hear that, Pac-12? It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Seahawks are desperate for a win after dropping one on the road last week and getting manhandled, Charlton. Also, the Carolina Panthers are smarting. This is their second game since firing Coach Ron Rivera. Can they rebound after that dismal loss to the Falcons last week?
Yeah, the Seahawks traveling across the country. They're looking to get that win. The Patriots, number 2, they are struggling a little bit, if you could call it struggling, at 10-3 at the Cincinnati Bengals 1-2, just what the doctor ordered. A 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff, East Coast time, Sunday on CBS Sports, and the Patriots are favored by 9.5 points. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Patriots are trying to get healthy, Charlton. They have struggled for the past several games. They desperately need this game against Bengals, who are 1-1 in their last 2 games. The Patriots have struggled at wide receiver. The Cincinnati Bengals are getting A.J. Green back.
The Patriots got to focus on Rex Burkhead and James White running the ball to help out Tom Brady. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 6-7 at the Detroit Lions 3-9-1. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Buccaneers are favored by 3.5 points. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I guess the biggest question on this game, will Jameis Winston throw an opening pick?
You know he will.
He did last week against Indianapolis, even though he rebounded with 446 passing yards in that game for that victory, Charlton, over the Colts. But they're going to be without Mike Evans, so the offensive game may struggle just a little bit for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they got to get Detroit's defensive playmakers, Darius Slay and Tracy Walker, to play well also. The Chicago Bears 7-6 at the Green Bay Packers 10-3, 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff, East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. And this iconic matchup has the Packers favored by 4.5 points at Lambeau. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you think about the 4.5 points, Charlton, that was the difference in the first game that they met, the opening game of the season. It was a 4-point difference. The Packers beat the Bears 10-6. The Bears could not muster a touchdown. But if you look at Mitch Trubisky's last 2 games, Charlton, where he's thrown for 3 touchdowns in each one of those games and well over 300 yards in each, the Packers could be in a little bit of trouble defensively against Mitch Trubisky. He's found his stride. Aaron Rodgers might want to get in a shootout with Mitch Trubisky and leave Aaron Jones out of the offensive scheme. If he does that, the Packers will fall by the wayside.
Yeah, they got to give Aaron Jones the rock, especially chasing down that NFC North title. Denver Broncos, they look like gangbusters last week down in Texas. Big C, 5-8 on the season at the Kansas City Chiefs. 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time, Sunday on CBS Sports. In Kansas City's favored by 9.5, even though Mahomes has a little bit of stiffness in his hands. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Drew Lock, is he lucky or good? You know, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
Drew Lock has been hot. He's 2-0 in his first 2 NFL starts, Charlton. The Denver Broncos may have found that diamond in the rough in the second round that John Elway has been looking for. Patrick Mahomes has to find a way to get back in stride, Charlton. His last 2 outings have been subpar. But the defense for Kansas City has really played well. They're going to need a running game against the Denver Broncos. to keep Locke off the field.
Yeah, and the Broncos offense built for that kind of game with running backs Phillip Lindsay and also Royce Freeman. Should be a great game. Big C, the Miami Dolphins 3-10 at the New York Giants 2-11. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on sports. The Giants are favored by 3.5. Have they realized that they have Eli Manning at quarterback? Based on your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, this is the game that the Giants and Eli Manning desperately need. The Giants need this game for Eli Manning to get back to 500 as a quarterback in his career. So they're going to pull out all stops against the Miami Dolphins. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, Charlton, I see him shining on the biggest of stage. They just gave their wide receiver Grant a new 4-year contract after that monster game he had last week, Charlton. I like the Dolphins to knock off the Giants.
And the Giants got to lean on Saquon Barkley and not try to make Manning a hero. He looks good in the first half. We don't know what happens in the second half, Big C. The Eagles, sometimes people fight for what they want. The Eagles have an opportunity. They're 6-7 on the season. They're at the Washington Redskins 3-10. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox. And the Eagles are favored by 5.5 over their rivals, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm not so sure about the Eagles. This is a team that's depleted in their receiving core, and we've seen how they struggle. They had to play 3 tight ends last week against the Giants, and they had to come from behind in the fourth quarter. So this is a team right now that lacks confidence. This is a team that's desperate for a win, but they lack confidence, and I'm not confident in the Eagles.
Not confident. The East is still up for grabs in the NFC. As we go down the South, Big C, the Houston Texans 8-5 at the Tennessee Titans, also 8-5. It's a 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Texans. But right now, the Titans are favored by 2.5, and they're playing like the hungrier team. You never know what you're going to get out of the Texans, Big C. Your thoughts?
I don't know if they're hungry or they're just good. They've been 5-1 in their last 6 games. They found fool's gold in Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill is playing with house money right now in Tennessee, and he has this big defensive end in the backfield running the football. They call him Derrick Henry, who is second in the NFL in rushing behind Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when that offensive line gets healthy in Tennessee. They were without Taylor Lewan, the start of the season, the first 4 games that left off as a tackle. Now that they're all in sync, the defense has played outstanding. Mike Vrabel really has them playing defense in Tennessee. I like the Titans.
Yeah, and the Texans, who just got 30 first quarter points, this time the second lowest in the NFL, and that's not that good when you look at how they don't start off to a fast start. The Jacksonville Jaguars 4-9 at the Oakland Raiders 6-7. For the last time in Oakland, California, it's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Raiders are favored by 6.5 points. It'll be the last regular season and probably by all means the last game played at the Oakland Coliseum. And I wonder if they'll take the tarp off the top of the stadium just for people to come in for free on the top section, but I doubt it. Big C, your thoughts?
No, Charlton, they're most likely packing up at the stadium right now. The Oakland Raiders mailed it in a long time ago. They don't have a chance. Only mathematically, and not many players in the NFL know what math is anymore.
Yeah. Unless it's in their paycheck, they really know it then. But Gruden got the $100 million, and now he's going down to Vegas. Well, that's when they'll have their next home game. It's a shame, but, money makes people move, Big C. The Cleveland Browns 6-7 at the Arizona Cardinals 3-9-1. That's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Browns are favored by 2.5 in the desert. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is going to be a motivational game for Baker Mayfield when you look at that. Cliff Kingsbury was his coach at Texas Tech and decided he no longer wanted him around there prior to him going to Oklahoma, Charlton. And he's drafted the guy who backed him up at Oklahoma in Kyler Murray. We know the attitude he had towards the coach that he had, Hugh Jackson, in Cleveland when he was let go. Is he going to have that same type of demonstrative demeanor against Kingsbury? And if he does, watch out. The Cardinals can win this game.
I wouldn't doubt it, Big C. The Minnesota Vikings, Purple People Eater 2, 9-4 at the L.A. Chargers 5-8. That's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Vikings are favored by 2.5, Big C. I know they'll have as many fans as the Chargers do, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the last time I checked is that Phillip Rivers didn't have much mobility. The Vikings offensive line is coming off a 6-sack performance last week. They have Phillip Rivers in the crosshairs. This won't be a game at all.
Run, Dalvin Cook, run. It's not a big stadium, but they can see him running, Big C. The LA Rams, they look like they're rejuvenated. They're 8-5 at the Dallas Cowboys, 6-7, looking for that NFC East title if they can stay afloat, Big C. 4:25 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Rams going into Texas, favored by 1.5. What will Jerry Jones do now, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, if you look at what Todd Gurley has been doing, Charlton, as late, he's touched the ball 23 and 25 times, respectively, in their last couple of games, and they both spelled victories for the Los Angeles Rams. The last time these two teams met, Charlton, last year, it ended the Dallas Cowboy season. I see it happening all over again.
Prescott under pressure has to find Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and Randall Cobb, as well as Jason Witten. It should be a dogfight down in Texas, Big C. The Falcons 4-9 at the San Francisco 49ers 11-2. This team used to be in the same conference in the NFC West, Atlanta and San Francisco. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the 49ers are favored by 10.5. They can have 10.5 by halftime, but the Falcons can score, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about teams having familiarity with each other, Charlton, Mike Shanahan was offensive coordinator when the Falcons went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's a lot of familiarity with the Falcons defense with what Mike Shanahan does. You got to think about the 49ers. Dee Ford is out at defensive end. Richard Sherman is out at cornerback. They were without their top tackler at linebacker, Charlton. So this is not the San Francisco 49ers that you saw 5 weeks ago. They're still also without two of their starting offensive linemen. They're going to have a new center, and this is going to be his first start of the season in an offensive guard. They're also without Staley at offensive tackle. So this is a team that's a little nicked up. This will be a dogfight in the end. Don't be surprised if those Falcons rise up.
Yeah, they may cover the spread. Now that Matt Breida is healthy for the Niners, finally that should help their run game. If they remember, they got a great running back in the backfield. Also, as we come to the close in the last couple of games, might be game of the day. The Buffalo Bills 9-4 at the Pittsburgh Steelers 8-5. It's an 8:20 kickoff East Coast time, and it's going to be Sunday night on NBC Sports. Now the Steelers are favored by 2.5, but this Buffalo team, they're smarting. They've already lost to the Ravens. They'll have a quarterback not as mobile against Pittsburgh. I'm really looking forward to this game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Josh Allen, even though the Bills won last week, struggled. He was only 19 for 41. Devin Singletary had an outstanding game at running back with 92 yards rushing. But the real story about the Bills is their defense. But that's also the story about the Pittsburgh Steelers is their defense. And if you look at these two quarterbacks, you got Josh Allen, who was a first-round draft pick. You got Devin Hodges, who was an undrafted free agent rookie at the Pittsburgh Steelers, Charlton. I like what Devin Hodges is doing because of the confidence that Mike Tomlin has in him. Mike Tomlin is a true leader in what he does with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team, when you think about the three biggest players on offense from 2 years ago are gone.
Yeah.
And this is a team that's led by Mike Tomlin, not Ben Roethlisberger, not Antonio Brown, not Le'Veon Bell. Mike Tomlin, who has always been the ringleader of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You think about what Mike Tomlin has done with the Pittsburgh Steelers, not even having a number one receiver. If he had the Dallas Cowboys, Charlton, they might be 12-2 right now.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys, if he was coaching them with the talent that they have. So when you think about how great a coach that Mike Tomlin is, and then you look at his lineup and see if it's sprinkled full of number one draft picks, no. It's sprinkled full of the best coach in the NFL.
Jerry Jones has an airplane. He has an airplane that flies. He knows how to land in Pittsburgh International Airport, Big C. It's amazing. You never know when teams decide that they're going to throw the bank at you, Big C. On Monday Night Football, the Indianapolis Colts 6-7 at the New Orleans Saints 10-3. They got to be smart for what happened. That last-second field goal loss to the 49ers last Sunday. It's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff East Coast time, Monday night on ESPN, and the Saints go marching in by 9.5, and they got to be kicking themselves, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if they're kicking themselves, Charlton. It's just that defense let them down. You think about the performance that Drew Brees had. But this is an offense that's really predictable when you think about New Orleans. You got Michael Thomas, the receiver. They lost Cook last week to a concussion in that game. I think that hurt them offensively. But Alvin Kamara should be at full speed, Charlton, coming into this game, who is a difficult matchup for anybody on defense. But Drew Brees, that arm is swinging it right now. Talked about he would be strong at the end of the season compared to where he was last year. It's proven out that thumb injury kind of helped him out.
It's amazing how we get down to the playoffs. The holidays are here. People are excited about football and who's going to finish where. And just like that analogy you made about college football playoffs, and I was saying we need 6 teams, you said, Charlton, we already have playoffs. We already have expanded playoffs. That's what the conference championships are. That's part of the playoff bracket. You lose that conference championship, you're not going to see the playoffs. So that's a good way to look at it also, Big C. I really love what's going on in the NFL. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Also want to thank iHeartRadio, acknowledging that Big C Sports is one of the most popular podcasts that they have on their platform, the largest in the United States of America. I want to close out just some NBA basketball, and I felt like we were upstage last night when we said, Grando Deportes, Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south? And then Luka Doncic in Mexico City. I didn't know he spoke fluent Spanish, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you never know what these European basketball players can do, Charlton. We spend so much time singing the praise of these 18, 19-year-old one-and-done American basketball players, not realizing Luka Doncic was a grown man when he got here after being in pro basketball for 4 years.
And he speaks Spanish like a grown man, too, really doing a lot of good things down there for them good old boys in Texas, Big C. If he speaks too much Spanish, you think POTUS won't let him back in the country, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he'll look at his complexion and hair color more than he will anything else.
So he passes the paper bag test, I understand. New Orleans at Philadelphia, Houston at Orlando. The Los Angeles Lakers are really doing their thing at the Miami Heat. Don't hang out on the beach. Sometimes it makes your legs tired, if that makes any sense to you. Indiana at Atlanta. I want to run back real quick because the Lakers and the Heat, Pat Riley has, he has affinity for both programs, led the Lakers to championships, led the Heat to championships. But it really missed his chance to be a dynamic game. LeBron James going back to where he also won a championship. There's a lot of championships down in Miami, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, don't count out the Heat in this game, Charlton. The Heat are the only team in the NBA that's undefeated at home.
Yeah, I know. As I say, don't run on the beach when you go down to Miami. Indiana at Atlanta, Milwaukee at Memphis, Charlotte at Chicago, Golden State at Utah. Golden State cannot finish with the worst record in basketball. What a difference a year makes. LA Clippers at the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the New York Knicks at the Sacramento Kings. I know we'll cover more NBA basketball, especially after the holidays, and I really love the way things are going. Are you happy with the fact that we have so much basketball? It's good basketball. I know the ratings are a little bit low. It's only low because football's so great, and this Army-Navy game, I can't wait to see that. I'm happy for Friday Night Lights coming to the crescendo. A lot of high school kids will get their state and section championship trophies, and I'm looking forward to that. Big C, any more thoughts that you have for the high school players?
Well, Charlton, it's always great to finish out your high school career on the top. And, you can aspire to be one of those great college football players at the next level. When you think about last night in Atlanta, Charlton, they had the College Football Player Awards, Charlton. And last night, LSU quarterback Joe Burrow won the Maxwell and Davey O'Brien trophies as the top player in the country and the top quarterback in the country. Doak Walker Award went to Jonathan Taylor, running back from Oklahoma State. And you think about Jonathan Taylor, this is a guy who is like Drew Brees in college football. He never gets nominated for an award. He's always there at the top of the list. This guy, in 3 years of college football, is the number 3 all-time leading rusher in the history of college football with 6,020 yards.
Yep.
The Fred Biletnikoff Award top receiver went to Jamar Chase of LSU. The Outland Trophy went to Oregon sophomore Penei Sewell, offensive tackle. Chuck McNarick Award, top defensive player, went to Chase Young, Ohio State. Jim Thorpe Award went to junior safety Grant Delpit at LSU. The Lou Groza Award, top kicker in the country, went to Rodrigo Blankenship, University of Georgia. The Ray Guy Award, top punter in the country, went to Max Duffy out of Kentucky. So when you talk about those kids on Friday Night Lights, Charlton, and aspiring to get to the next level, these are the achievements that you want to get when you're in college football. Be named the best at your position.
That's very well said, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Charlton, there's never anything that can replace the history and the excitement and the electricity of college football. There's nothing that can ever replace the majesty of the Army-Navy game and what it means for the young men of our fighting forces of this country.
And you can appreciate fighting for this country. We'll fight for you, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.